All right, today we're starting our last chapter, which is over financial literacy. What does financial mean? Money. So this is our money unit. Some things that I'm going to teach you will really interest you because it's about like borrowing money and paying it back. And some of it's about like college costs and how you can save and make a savings plan. Some of it's stuff that you don't absolutely have to memorize at all because the banks will take care of like the interest and stuff, but you need to understand what it means. So it's super important lessons. All right. Have you guys ever heard the word interest?
Yes.
What does it mean, or what do you think it means? It has to do with percents, absolutely.
And it goes up like over time.
Sometimes, yes. What is it though? And what does it have to do with? Money. It has to do with money. So, when you want to go buy your first car, do you think you'll have all the money you need right then? Probably not. Some of us do, some of us don't. So what would you do if you don't have all the money? You get a loan. From who?
The bank.
From the bank. You get a loan from the bank. Yes? Now, why would the bank want to loan you money? To charge you interest. So it's like, what's in it for them? Why would they give you free money, right? They're not. It cost you. So you're going to pay it back, and you're also going to pay it back with interest. Interest is a fee. Write this down. Interest is a fee paid by the borrower. Now, you can make interest by investing your money. So if you get a savings account, you can put your money in it, and the bank actually pays you interest for you to keep your money there. Because what they're going to do is they're going to turn around and loan it out to somebody else and make money off of your money. Okay? So it's really smart to start investing your money because you can get that interest paid to you. But if you borrow the money, you are going to pay back all of it that you borrowed plus a fee. Does that make sense? Yes? Interest is usually always given as a percent. And then, of course, once you want to calculate with it, you have to change it to a decimal. But it's always given as a percent. Now, here's a lesson you need to know that doesn't really, you don't have to know it for this, but I want y'all to know it. Have you ever heard your parents talk about credit? Okay, what does that mean? Your credit score, yes. Whether you pay back money that you borrow. So I want y'all to understand something. The minute that you turn 18, you can start getting credit. Okay? Do not ever let anyone use your credit. Like, don't do it. Yes, so credit means, like right now y'all don't have any credit. You don't have good or bad because you're under 18. Okay? So nobody can hurt your credit right now and nobody can make it good. The minute you turn 18, you can go borrow money. Okay? So let's say you get a credit card. And let's say you borrow money and you don't pay it back. What just happened? You owe money to that bank and your credit score went way down. So now you want to go borrow money to get it. Let's just say you want to go get a car. Do you think they're going to loan you the money? They're going to say, I'm sorry, your credit's not good enough. Okay? Or you want to get an apartment. You want to get a cell phone through AT&T or T-Mobile. They run your credit to see if you pay your bills. And if you don't, they're not going to do it for you. Then you'll have to get the month-to-month plan. Okay? The apartment places, they're not going to lease to you because you're too risky. Does that make sense? So your job when you turn 18 is to start building your credit. Now, I was super thankful that my dad taught me this lesson. He said, when you turn 18, I want you to get a credit card, but I only want you to get like a maximum limit of like $200 on it. Because he knew I was 18 and not like super responsible. He said, every time you get gas, I want you to put it on your credit card. And then at the end of the month, I want you to pay it all off. Like, don't let any go to the next month. Because then they can't charge you this interest fee. Okay, if you pay it right back, they won't charge you the interest fee. But what you're doing is you're proving that you can borrow money and pay it back on time.
So then your credit score.
Now my credit score starts to go up. Okay? And I was so thankful that my dad taught me this lesson because I made sure that every time I borrowed money, number one, I could 100% pay it back. You never borrow money if you can't pay it back because your credit score is going to go down. Here's the other thing. The better your credit score, the better the interest rate you get. Okay? So I've worked my whole life to build my credit score up, and now it's really, really high. When I go borrow money now, they give me a great interest rate, like a very low interest fee. The worse your credit score, let's say your credit score is average, they'll loan you the money, but your interest rate is going to be super high. And now you're having to pay back a higher fee. So if I could teach you anything today, number one, do not let anybody use your credit. Okay? The worst thing I've seen is my friends, they get into a relationship with their boyfriend or girlfriend. The boyfriend or girlfriend says, hey, can you co-sign for me? What does co-sign mean? You're putting your name on that bill. And if they don't pay it, guess what? You have to pay it or you go down. So if I could teach you anything, do not sign anything unless you're willing to pay it back. And this goes for me as a parent as well. So like my daughter, we bought a car, okay? If I pay the bill, but let's just say she paid the bill and I co-signed. I need to be willing to pay that bill if she stops because it'll hurt my credit. So anytime you sign anything, you have to be willing to take on the responsibility for that loan. Does that make sense? Otherwise, you do not ever sign your name unless you can physically pay the bill. Okay? Do not let anybody talk you into co-signing anything unless you're willing to what? Pay the bill. Okay? So that's what we're learning about today is interest, which is a fee paid by a borrower. Now again, you can make interest by investing your money, or you can pay interest by borrowing money. Does that make sense? Now, what we're going to learn today is called simple interest. So if you go to your star chart, at the very bottom, do you see simple interest right here? So you don't have to memorize this formula. Now, here's the cool thing. When you get older and you're borrowing money or investing money, the banks will actually calculate all of this for you. So you don't have to really know this formula, but it helps to understand how it works. So that's what we're going to learn today is how it works and how to use it. It's actually super easy. So the formula is I equals PRT, and I wrote that right here for you on your notes. Now, you do have to know what each part of the formula means. What do y'all think the I stands for? Interest. Write that down. Now, the P stands for principal. Principal, and not the principal that we work with, like not our boss. Okay? Principal. The principal is the starting amount that's borrowed or invested. So I want y'all to understand this isn't always about borrowing. It's also about investing your money. So it's the starting amount that you invest or the starting amount that you borrow. What do y'all think R stands for? The rate. That is your interest rate. And it's always going to be given to you as a percent, but you have to change it to a decimal to use it. Now, when you're borrowing money, you want a low interest rate. When you're investing money, what do you want? You want a high one because you want people to have to pay you a higher fee. Okay? And the T is the time, and it must be given in years. Now, a lot of times you'll go buy a car and you'll hear them say, oh, you can pay this back in 36 months or 72 months. The formula is going by years. So you just have to convert that to years. So do y'all know how to convert months to years?
Yeah.
What do you divide by? 12. So to convert, write this down. To convert months to years, comma, divide by 12. To convert months to years. So when you go borrow a car and they say, hey, you could pay this back in 36 months, then you would say, well, 36 divided by 12 is 3. So you would actually have 3 years to pay that back. Okay? Now, usually the shorter the term, the better interest rate you'll get too. So like if you borrow money for a car and you pay it back in 7 years, your interest rate's going to be higher because that's a longer time. So if you pay it back in 5 years, it's going to go down a little bit. So you're always trying to juggle, right, your interest rate, but also your monthly payment. Because the longer you pay it out, the cheaper your bill is every month. Yes? Does that make sense? Okay. So when you go buy a house, do y'all know what that's called? A mortgage. Yeah. If you're borrowing money from the bank to buy a house, it's called a mortgage. They usually do 15-year loans or 30-year loans. Which one do you think is going to be the better deal in the long run? 15. The 15. But the question is, can you afford the monthly note? Because it's going to be higher. But you would save a whole lot of money in interest if you pay it back in 15 years versus 30. Okay? So that's a lot of stuff you need to understand as when you become an adult. So when you go buy your first house, most people put it on a 30-year note, and their monthly note is cheaper. But in the end, they pay back like $200,000 more in just fees alone. So say they buy a $200,000 house, they actually are paying $450,000 for it because they had to pay so much money in fees. So it's always better to do the lower years if possible. Okay? All right. So we're going to learn how to use this formula. Now, simple interest solves for interest. It solves for the fee that you're going to pay. So does that mean the total you're going to pay or just the fee? Just the fee. All right. So let's say we're going to buy a car for $37,500. Okay? They're going to charge us 3% interest for 5 years. How much interest will they owe? And what will their total amount they have to pay back be? Guys, 3% is an amazing interest rate. It's very low. Okay? That means you had a great credit score and they gave you a very good interest rate. So let's go see. Write the formula down. I equals PRT. So we're solving for what in this formula? So it's going to give us this answer. It's not going to give us this answer. Okay? All right, what is the principal, the amount we're borrowing? So $37,500 times, what is the rate they're giving us? 3%, but we have to change it to do y'all remember how to do that in your calculator? You just put it over 100. Or you move the decimal 2 places to the left if you do it by hand. So what is it as a decimal? Here I'll show y'all. 3 over 100 is 0.03. Now, guys, you have to write it down correctly. And what does T mean? Time. So how many years am I doing this for? All right, now all you have to do is type that in your calculator. So 37,500 times 0.03 times 5. How much interest are they going to pay? $5,625, just that the bank is going to make profit. That's the fee you're paying for borrowing that money. And guys, I told y'all that is a really cheap fee. So how do y'all think we could get the total that we're going to owe? The interest plus what you're borrowing. So what are we borrowing? Y'all better pay attention. How am I going to get the total? I'm borrowing $37,500. I have to pay that back. Yes? I also have to pay back the fee. What's the fee? $5,625. Do y'all understand how I got my total? Or how I'm going to get my total? I'm going to say it again. This formula solved for the fee the bank is going to charge me. I have to pay back the amount I borrowed, which is this, and I also have to pay back the fee. So I simply add them together. So 5,625 plus 3,750. How much am I going to pay back total? $43,125. All right, I'm going to give you just a second, and I want you to set this one up on your own, again, with this formula. Quickly, you're using these three numbers, but you have to change this to a decimal, and that is a super cheap interest rate. Everybody should be doing it on their own right now. If you need help, you can look at the board. I'll get it started. Okay, so this example is like if I wanted to buy a $60,000 car, which is pretty average lately in these days, yes? This is pretty average too. You could get a new car for this lately, but it's just like a lower end car, and this is pretty much like a middle car, and then the expensive ones are like 80 to 90 right now. Okay, so I'm doing a $60,000 car. This is literally one of the cheapest interest rates you'll ever see. And I'm going to pay it back in 6 years. That's kind of long for a car. Okay? How much interest am I going to pay? I'm going to pay a $9,000 fee. So how do I get the total that I owe? I'm going to ask again. How do I get the total that I'm going to owe? I owe $60,000. Plus, I owe a fee of $9,000, which is $69,000 for a car. That is an expensive fee. Do y'all agree? To borrow some money. It is always better to pay cash, but realistically, we can't always pay cash. Okay, so you've got to take care of your credit so that you can borrow money, and then you always have to make sure that you can realistically pay the money back every month. All right, flip to the back, do 2 more examples, and then you'll be on your own. Now, I want to talk to you about this next example. What's different about this one, right? They give it to you as a fraction. Now, listen, when you change this fraction to a decimal, it's still a percent. You have not fixed the percent until you put it over 100. So 7 halves is 3.5, so I'll show y'all. 7 halves, math, decimal enter, is 3.5. I did not take the percent sign off until I put it over 100. So you're going to have to change this from a fraction to a decimal, but to get the percent sign off, I have to put it over 100. Does that make sense? All right, so 3.5 over 100 is 0.035. So I'm going to write that right here. My R is 0.035. And of course, you can put that 0 in front. It doesn't matter. But you have to have a decimal 0.035. I'll show you. Okay, so my P is 3,000. Times my rate. Now, you can put 0.035 or you can just put 0.035. This right here is the ones place value, so if you don't put a 0, the calculator already knows it's a 0. But you do have to put these right here. Did that answer your question?
I got 0.4.
Your calculator's in rounding mode then. So if you got 0.04, you're in mode float 2 and you can't be for this assignment.
Yeah, I think I was in that too.
Yeah, so make sure you're not in mode float 2. Please get out of mode float 2. Everybody check your mode, go to mode, and make sure you're just in normal float. So float should be highlighted. All right, how many years? 5. Which answer is this going to give me? Interest. So I'm going to do 3,000 times 0.035 times 5. And my answer is $525. Now, did Lily borrow money or did Lily invest money? She invests. So she took her $3,000 to the bank and said, hey, I want to invest this. They gave her a 3.5% interest rate, which isn't bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. And she's going to make $525 just for letting her money sit there. So it's always better to put your money in the bank than keep it in your closet. Make sense? Because you'll make something off of your money if you put it in the bank. Okay? All right, how do I get her total account balance after 5 years? What am I going to add? 3,000 plus $525, which is $3,525. All right, I'm going to let you try this last one on your own. And hey, real quick, everybody look at this last part right here. What does that say? 36 months. The time has to be in years. So all you have to do is divide by 12 to get the T. Okay, go set it up. Right now, guys, let's go. Everybody should be doing this on their own right now. The first thing you're going to do is take care of this right here. You're going to have to change the fraction to a decimal, but it's still a percent until you put it over 100. Yes? What is 9 halves? 4.5, but does it still have a percent sign on it? Yes, so I have to take that and put it over 100 to get rid of the percent sign. So 4.5 over 100 is 0.045. That is my R. This is my P. Is 36 my T? Time must be given in years. So I have to divide 36 by 12, so that's actually 3 years. So I'm going to do I equals PRT. So I'm going to do 7,000 times 0.045 times 3. What is this answer going to give me? Which one of these? The interest they're earning. All right, so I'm going to go put this in my calculator. How much interest is Tamara going to make? $945. And then how do I find how much she's going to have in her account at the end of 3 years? I'm going to do 7,000 plus $945, which is $7,945. Question. Your assignment is on the Google Classroom. Now listen, you have to read. Stop real quick and listen. You have to read. Is it asking for interest or is it asking for the total amount? If it asks for interest, you just use the formula. If it asks for total amount, you use the formula and then you add it back to the principal. Yes? All right.